Preparations for our first event in 2014 began with mowing the field and laying down the striping that marked everything off. And that generally means our president, Coop, and his striping machine. And this also lets people see our newly cleaned up approaches on both the east and west ends of the field. These allow the bigger planes to make a shallower approach to the field. And throughout the event, we had a good number of large airplanes mixed in with just about any kind of aircraft you can think of. Dennis Shaver's Taylorcraft here still has to learn that it's not an aerobatic airplane. This event would draw about 42 pilots, and with one walk through the pits I counted 147 different aircraft, but there's a lot of planes and helicopters coming out of trailers and cars all through the day, so there's probably a lot more. This Edge was finished in the middle of the night before the event, and this is its maiden flight. And it works fine. Well, it worked fine until the motor conked out in a really bad position. He had to land it downwind. It's not real pretty, but it came down all in one piece, and they flew it later. Early in the day, we had some reasonably gusty winds, but we also had a bunch of really good pilots on hand, so they still put on a show. This isn't all that easy to do on a calm day, but these guys managed to dazzle everybody, wind or no wind. Another testament to the quality of the pilots on hand is that with hundreds of flights and all this aerobatics going on, we didn't wreck any airplanes all day. And here's Dennis again, still trying to convince his Taylorcraft that it's not aerobatic. And here's Dennis showing that his Taylorcraft can handle a short approach with a lot of crosswind. Just slip it in, straighten it out at the end, and set it down like a feather. Nothing to it when you know what you're doing. And not everything was big. Some of them didn't even have wheels. We also had a good number of helicopters show up for the event. Some of these were also doing things you wouldn't think a helicopter could do. We also had a good showing of scale and civilian type aircraft. People put a lot of work into these planes, and it's good to see them fly so well and have a chance to show the crowd what they can do. People ask me why I don't get more video of helicopters. And this is why. It's just about impossible to follow these things when you got a guy that's good on the sticks. Prices included an FMS F-18 from Hobbytown in Mooresville, 2 Nano Quad helicopters from High Speed Hobbies in China Grove, an addiction kit from Precision Aerobatics, a pair of tickets to Darlington Speedway donated by Dale, a member of the RC Wingers, and a grand prize is a 1-hour ride for 2 in a Piper Warrior 2 donated by a friend of an RC Wingers member. Probably the worst incident of the day came when his Piper Cub had to make an emergency landing because his wheels started falling off on takeoff. He did a great job of greasing it in though, and it looks like all he did was break a prop. It could have been way worse. It seems every fun play has to have at least one event that sort of dares you to wreck an airplane, and this was ours. We staked some helium balloons to the runway, and guys with fun fighters tried to pop the balloons, even though the wind was holding them pretty much right on the ground. Your one plane cuts the yellow balloon free, and the following one takes out the white balloon. This guy came from the opposite direction and took out the black balloon. The red balloon hung around until Ronnie Lambert come along and reeled in the string and flipped his fun fighter out in the weeds. We had lots of big planes, and then we had a couple of really big planes like this one. Without people in the picture, it looks full scale. We even had a radio-controlled skydiver. This is actually his second jump. He had lots of repairs made after the first jump when the chute didn't open. This time it was better. And if you like World War I scale planes, we had a few of those as well. There's a lot of detail in these planes that make them look great in the air. I left this in just to show you that with all of the high-quality 3D pilots we had at the show, they let D-and-a-half pilots like me in the show also. This is Ronnie Lambert starting his Edge, and it's important that you remember the size of this plane later on when you see some of the stuff he does with it. It just isn't natural to see a plane this big, going this slow, knife edge, this low to the ground. But he does this kind of stuff all the time. And it doesn't look any safer from up above. I helped Ronnie pick this plane up once, and it has to go a good 20 pounds, if not a little bit more, but you sure can't tell that by watching it fly. The important thing for non-flyers to keep in mind is that this plane doesn't want to do this. This takes a lot of control and a lot of skill to do. And once again, looking at it from above doesn't make it look any easier. While focused on Ronnie's plane, I kept hearing another one, and then I noticed in editing, if you look in the background, there's another plane doing a lot of the same stuff. In the end, everybody seemed to have a good time, and we didn't wreck any airplanes.